Alice, the little black furred pup, was holding the paw and hoof of the other two, apparently the leader. She was wearing a bright red shirt and gray shorts, her two yellow eyes looking over the couple warily as she stood in front of the other two in a protective fashion. The little lamb, Trevor, his wool also midnight black, was smiling hopefully at Dawn and Vernon. He was wearing a green, adolescent mutant samurai snakes shirt, depicting all four of the main reptile characters in green shorts. Little Lily was the most timid of the three, glancing at Dawn and Vern from behind Alice, peeking over her shoulder from time to time. She was wearing a violet sundress, with her brown head fur in a ponytail, tied with a white ribbon in a bow. Her deep blue eyes filled with worry, but also a twinge of hope. Her skin was almost a complete contrast to the other two, being very light and pale. And then they all clambered up onto the other couch, with Lily tucking herself just behind Alice once more, looking out with those wide eyes. Alice, Trevor, Lily. Amanda addressed the children, who all turned to look at her, to see the kangaroo motioning to the couple on the opposite couch. This is Mr. and Mrs. Hunter. Hello, Alice started, her voice cool and steady, but also friendly. Trevor simply waved, suddenly feeling shy, while Lily continued to stare, before being nudged by the wolf pup, and squeaking out a polite hello as well. Hello there, Dawn said, smiling at the trio before them, her excitement barely being contained. She could feel and hear Vernon's tail happily thumping the couch, and she knew that he felt the same way. She watched as all three of the children seemed to visibly relax, although Lily was still tucking herself behind Alice a bit. Dawn had to stop herself from cooing at the cuteness of it all, which was especially difficult, considering that she could now see that Lily was a bit taller than Alice or Trevor. Hey there, Vernon said, making sure not to expose his teeth and potentially frighten them. Unsure of how to proceed, Amanda politely guided all of them through the proper introductions. After a while of speaking, Dawn and Vernon told the children a bit about themselves. The children did the same. That was how Vernon and Dawn came to learn that Alice loved playing soccer. Trevor enjoyed reading, and Lily loved to draw. It seemed that all five had become comfortable around one another when Trevor asked a question. Are you two gonna adopt us? Because we're not gonna leave Lily behind, Trevor stated firmly. She's our little sister. Amanda looked shocked at the suddenness of the question, looking to the couple to see how they reacted to it. The ewe and wolf looked to one another and smiled, before turning to the trio. Well, even you three don't mind the idea of us adopting you, we'd be more than happy to take all of you, Vernon said, almost chuckling at the look of surprise on the three faces. Dawn then went on to explain that because they were a predator and prey couple, they were sometimes harassed, and how they didn't want to potentially subject any children to that didn't want to risk it. But, she added, if you would still like us to adopt you, we promise that we'll do everything to make sure that you know you are loved and cared for and protected. Dawn held her breath and squeezed Vernon's paw as the children huddled up on the couch, whispering to one another. It was a short talk that ended with them turned back to face to the couple, Alice speaking for the three. Okay. Just so long as me and my brother and sister get to stay together, she said, hugging them close to her for emphasis. Dawn and Vernon both simultaneously broke into happy grins, Dawn once again finding it hard not to coo at the cuteness of the three of them. They all excitedly spoke some more for nearly a half an hour before it was time for Dawn and Vernon to go. On their way out, Amanda assured them that the adoption process was going to be much quicker from that point on, and that, in a few days, they'd be able to take their new children home with them. It wasn't until they were back in the car, a safe and family-friendly SUV, with the windows rolled up, that Vernon let loose a howl of pure joy. Excitement, and a bit of relief. He normally was very good at suppressing his urge to howl, but this was a rare exception. Before Dawn could say a word, she was scooped up into his arms, as he held her tight and kissed her passionately. Their lips broke apart, and they cuddled each other closely for a moment, sharing in their happiness. "This is really happening," Vernon said, his tail a blur of excitement as he spoke. "We're really going to be parents." "I know, puppy love," Dawn said, as she rested her head on his chest, his scent flooding her nostrils and bringing with it the usual comfort that it brought. "This is like a dream come true. Oh, wow. Oh, darling," Vernon said as a thought suddenly struck him. "We got a lot to do now. We gotta get the rooms all ready for them. I gotta double check to make sure that the house is safe for them. We gotta," Vernon said faster and faster as he became more and more nervous. Dawn wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed the side of his muzzle, calming him instantly. "Everything's going to be okay, puppy. All we really have to do is clear out a third room, which will be simple. Get another bed. We already checked, and double-checked, and quadruple-checked to make sure that the house is a safe place for children," Dawn reminded him. "Right. I don't know how to describe what I'm feeling right now, darling," Vernon said, receiving another peck on the muzzle before Dawn slid back into her own seat and buckled her seatbelt. Vernon did the same before turning the keys, starting up the car, soon driving them to the house they had bought 2 years ago, in one of the residential areas of Savannah Central. It was a 2-story building with a garage, a small front yard, and a large backyard. There were 3 bathrooms, a master bedroom, and 5 other rooms, not counting the kitchen and living room. Vernon had converted what was the former owner's personal study into a home office, having finished his internship at the city's architecture department and earned himself a full-time position. Presently, he was working on a new library being built in the Sahara Square, something that he was very excited about. Dawn had dedicated an entire room to writing, having published another 2 books, currently working on a 3rd one, this one being a fantasy romance, which was a bit different from her other books. That had initially left the remaining rooms to be guest rooms, or storage rooms, whatever was convenient. But when they had first decided to adopt, they started renting a storage unit and transferred all of the excess items there. Only after the car was safely in the garage and the 2 were inside did they let their excitement get the better of them once again, with Dawn being picked up and perched on Vernon's shoulder as he let loose another howl. She laughed and lightly smacked her hoof against his head. "Vernon, how many times have I told you to stop doing this?" she asked, an excited giggle in her voice. Vernon just smiled slyly. "And how many times do I have to remind you that you know you love it when I do this?" he asked back. They were brought out of their excitement by the ringtone coming from Vernon's pocket. He fished out his phone and confirmed that the caller was his mother. He set Dawn down before answering it. "Hey there, Ma," he said. "Hi, Vernon. Did you have any luck today with making me a grandma?" Audrey asked. While she knew when to be tactful, she sometimes chose to be blunt. In her desire to have one of her children finally give her grandpups, her default was usually bluntness. "Actually, yes. We've got 3 pups that we're going to be taking in," Vernon said, wanting to add more, but the excited howl coming from the other end of the phone cutting off all further conversation. Dawn smiled, loving how excited her mother-in-law was at the news. Then her own phone started to buzz, and she checked to find that her own mother was calling, most likely to also ask about the adoption. Vernon and Dawn made eye contact, their joy apparent for anyone to see. After further explaining the details to their parents, and another passion-filled kiss, Vernon swept up Dawn into his arms and ran upstairs with her, perched on his shoulders. They came to a stop in the hall, both peering into the open door immediately on their left. Aside from a small bed and a dresser, it was bare, but for a moment, to their hopeful eyes, they both shared a vision of a room with some toys scattered about, the sheets and quilt on the bed a rumpled mess, a true child's room. Vernon? The youth's voice grabbed the wolf's attention, and he turned to face Dawn. "Yes, darling?" he asked in his deep voice. "We're really going to be parents?" It was a statement, not a question, a tear in the corner of her eye. Vernon reached up, gently nudging aside her glasses, and wiped away the tear. "It's really happening, Lamb Chop. It really is," Vernon said. That earned him a tight embrace from his mate around his neck as he led the two of them to the bedroom. He sat down on their large circular bed, with Dawn slipping down into his lap, pulling his muzzle close so that their lips could meet. He wrapped his paws around her waist, letting her guide him. Once again, their phones started to buzz, interrupting the two, who gazed into each other's eyes and smiled. "And that would be Gus calling," Vernon said as he looked at his phone. "Judy's calling too," Dawn said. Rather than answering their phones, they laid down with one another, Vernon curling his body around Dawn, enjoying the scent of her, his tail thumping down on the mattress. That little pup seemed like she was pretty used to shielding the other two, Vernon said, thinking back to how Alice had continually stayed a little bit in front of Lily and Trevor. "I know what you mean, puppy," Dawn said, inhaling Vernon's scent, snuggling closer into his exposed chest fur. "She seems like a good big sister." "The little lamb, Trevor," Dawn started after another moment of enjoying her wolf's presence. "I think that he's going to be quite the bookworm." "Just like his new mother," Vernon's voice rumbled, his chest vibrating against her muzzle as he spoke. Vernon could feel Dawn's bright smile, even though her face was obscured. "Lily," Dawn said, hesitating for a moment, "I don't know what species she is, but the poor dear just seems so scared. I just wanted to give her a big hug and tell her that everything is going to be all right." "I know what you mean, darling," Vernon said as they moved a bit apart, their phones buzzing some more, which they both continued to ignore, just laying side by side and enjoying the comfort of each other. "I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like to live in an orphanage, and on top of that, to not even know what you are. It couldn't have been easy." Dawn reached out and took Vernon's paw into her hooves. It can't have been easy for any of them. In fact, the theory that Amanda said someone had about Lily, the one about her being some kind of deformed sheep, even if it's true, that's not going to stop us from showering her with the same amount of love and attention as her brother and sister. "Not one bit," Vernon confirmed, before their phones both buzzed again, both the bunny cop and the goat showing the same amount of persistence. With a simultaneous roll of their eyes, they both answered their friends' calls. "Dawn!" came Judy's voice from the used phone. "Is everything okay? How'd the interview go?" "Everything's fine, Judy. Better than fine, actually. Going to be parents," Dawn said. There was a pause as Dawn let that information sink in, before she started to wonder if they'd gotten disconnected. Then there was a loud squeal of pure joy that made Dawn concurrently smile and wince a little. "Oh, sweet cheese and crackers, finally!" Judy said. "Hello there, Gus," Vernon said, while Dawn filled Judy in on the details. "Hiya, Vern. How'd it go?" the goat asked. "Surprisingly better than any of the other times. Dawn and I will be a ma and pa," he said, holding back a chuckle as he heard Gus let an excited bleat. "That's wonderful, Vern. So, what's your new kid gonna be?" Gus asked on the other end. "Well, we're gonna be taking in 3 pups," Vernon said. 3? Gus asked, surprised. 3 kids? Were they having a sale? Gus joked. "No, but they were a package deal," Vernon explained. "They wouldn't be separated. Not that we were going to separate siblings, even adopted siblings like these 3. "Okay. So, what are they?" Gus asked. "Well, 2 little girls and a little boy. They are a wolf pup, a little lamb, and, well, no one really knows what the species she is, but she's just the cutest little mystery mammal." "Oh, really? Well, congratulations, buddy," Gus said, meaning it. "I can't wait to meet your kids." "Dawn," Judy said, after she had been filled in on the details, "you're about to become a mommy." The bunny practically squealed in delight. "And they're hitting the ground running on this whole parent thing, it would seem," came the voice of Nick, whose muzzle, with his classic smirk, poked into view for Dawn to see. "I know, 3 little kids." "It'll probably be like a dream come true for them," Judy said, turning to look up at Nick, a dreamy look in her eyes. "Really makes you think. Huh, Slick?" Nick's face suddenly lost its smirk, the expression on his muzzle becoming very uncomfortable. What do you mean, carrots?" Nick asked, tugging at the collar of his police uniform. "Well, we could also help make a wonderful difference in the life of a..." Judy started innocently before the fox cut her off. "Oops, did you hear that call on the radio? It looks like I'd better go take care of that," he said, his face suddenly disappearing. "That dumb fox," Dawn heard Judy mumble, before the bunny smiled at her and offered yet another congratulation, clearly chasing after Nick. "Nick, I don't know where you think you're going, but you..." Judy's voice could be heard before the call cut off. Dawn giggled at the antics of her dear friends. Vernon, having heard some of what transpired, rumbled out another deep chuckle of his own. "I have a feeling that they're going to be adopting their own little ones pretty soon, darling," Vernon said, as he set his phone on the nightstand. His conversation with Gus having ended a little while ago. He then pulled Dawn back into his embrace, his tail wagging again as they cuddled closely. $20 says that they'll start looking by the end of the week." "Oh, puppy, don't be ridiculous," Dawn said, as she looked up into Vernon's gaze. "The end of the month will be much more likely." "You know, honey lamb, just because we're already adopted doesn't mean we can't try to become parents the old-fashioned way," Vernon suggested with a wink. "True," Dawn said, pretending to consider this. "But I don't remember ever hearing about a wolf and a sheep interbreeding before." "Doesn't sound like much of an excuse to not try to me, darling," Vernon said, his voice growing huskier. "You make a very compelling argument there, puppy love," Dawn said, just before she removed her glasses, set them next to her phones on the nightstand.